Okay. Alright, welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classic Legend Known Classics. This is episode number 3512, Dobuleshot number 3406. Well, this is discussing two Marvel group trades. First of which is Fantastic Four Fanfare. Yeah. When I saw this, it's a really cool concept. Though Fanfare itself, from what I've been told about this particular title, the original one, was that the entire series was, get this, stories that were kept in Marvel's drawers for a long time and just made part of this comic. Basically, it was an anthology series. And given Fantastic Four is an interesting idea, I'm hoping basically we get more of this, having more writers do stuff like this. Like, if you think, like, what other characters could use a Fanfare comic? I would say Spider-Man. Yes, he would definitely work, even though he's had anthology series before. But giving a Fanfare book that would work, I would love to see it for Captain America, Iron Man, that might be interesting, Thor, Avengers, the X-Men. I wouldn't be surprised if Wolverine got one. Good fact, I'm sure there's probably a ton of people who really want to write them. But you can think of, now, I did look now I look at the inside here. Now, there are 4 issues in this book. Yeah, only 4 issues. Now, initially, I read the first 3 when they came out, and then read issue 4. But here's the thing. Of all the writers who write the stories in here, get this. Only 4 have actually written this comic before. Mark Waid, of course. He actually was the writer of the comic. I think at the time when I started reading comics back in 2004. Of course, you have Dan Slott, who was the third most recent writer. It was actually 2 writers before the current one. So him doing one, not a bad idea to do. John Hickman had a very interesting run for Fantastic Four. I've never heard anybody say anything bad about this run, but it's not like the tone that Ryan North goes to, but it's very science fiction heavy. But it does expand upon the lore of Fantastic Four, and I really enjoy Hickman's run. JMS, of course. He, of course, was actually the writer of the comic when Civil War 1 was going on. Of course, he was also writing a book called Amazing Spider-Man. The other writers here are quite interesting. So we have the opening story of first issue called You Rezo, of course, this means war. It was written by Mark Waid, of course. Roman Reigns basically is the artist. Now, second story of the book is one of my artists who I believe has done Fantastic Four work in the past. Excuse me. I think he worked on a miniseries with New Labs. I know he worked on some Fantastic Four work. I think it was back in the 80s, I think it was. But mostly an artist. He doesn't do a lot of artwork per se. He doesn't do a lot of writing per se. He is a fantastic artist. Called Life as a Gas. The third story of issue 3 is called Monster Island of Love, written by Andrew Wheeler and art by Sarah Pacelli, who I recently met just a little month ago. She's awesome. Here's the thing. Doesn't speak much English. I never knew that about her. Of course, when people think of her, usually the first thing people think when people think of Sarah Pacelli, who is an amazing artist, by the way, is that she's the co-creator of Miles Morales. And I did ask her, how did she feel Miles Morales being included in Spider-Verse? She seemed pretty happy with it. Waid, I actually met him back in 2015. It was just before the start of his Avengers run he worked on. Yeah, his run actually I really enjoyed. Never Hickman. Now, issue 2, we have John Hickman, Justin Weaver doing the artwork. I think Weaver was his artist for Fantastic Four. Good reunion for the two. Second story featuring a story by John Tyler Christopher, Andrew McIntosh. Of course, John Christopher is also not only the writer, but he's also the color writer and colorist. Hide and Seek is done by Mark Buckingham, who is the writer and artist of the book. I never met the guy. Issue 3, of course, Dan Slott, who did. There's no denying. Anybody who's ever read his Fantastic Four, in my honest opinion, he did an amazing job with the book. He actually did something that other writers hesitated to do by marrying the Thing and Alicia Masters in the opening 4 issues. by issue 4, Alicia Master get married, and this is the same period of time they're trying to marry Catwoman, Batman, Catwoman, and Colossus and Kitty Pryde. Bella's red hair, of course, they're marrying Gambit and Rogue instead. But thank you for marrying off a couple of basic. I think a lot of old, long-time Fantastic Four fans really wanted to see it, and thank you for allowing that to happen finally. Of course, we have Tom DeFalco and Ron Fritz, who does another round. Which this is amazing. I had to bring him back because he had of course. What do you think of Tom DeFalco nowadays? People think of him mostly as the creator of Mayday, aka Spider-Girl. But this guy also had runs for Fantastic Four, Thor, and Spider-Man. Yeah, he was a long-time Spider-Man writer, I think editor too. Chip Zdarsky. He did the life story for Fantastic Four. At least he has a history of Fantastic Four. Good job bringing him in. Life story was basically Railroad Time. He also did the Spider-Man one. Now currently he's writer for Captain America with Michael Ardra in the artwork. Now I don't think these two had any history with Fantastic Four that I can think of part of this story. I don't think so. Of course, JMS does Ain't No Grave, which probably is a reference to the song Ain't No Grave, Keep my Body Down, which I tend to think now associated with Johnny Cash. Apparently, according to I think it was Tinieth who told me this on Substack, that Johnny Cash was not the rich person in the song, was a different person. There's one by Greg Wiseman, never met the guy. Art for Grave was done by Kafu. Greg Wiseman does the writing for One Night. Mark Bagley does the artwork for that story. Now, those thinking, did Mark Bagley ever do Fantastic Four? I don't remember if he ever did. Not top of my head, I don't think he ever did. I don't think he ever did Fantastic Four that I can think of. Wiseman. I don't think he's had a history of Fantastic Four that I can think of. At least, yeah, Zdarsky might be the only one of the writers. He wrote the main book for Fantastic Four, but he wrote miniseries for them, which is nice. Danny Warren Johnson. Clobbering Time. Probably a Thing story. Yep. The cover artwork. Issue 1 is done by Matteo Cassira. Issue 2 is Claudio Castelli and Dean White. Issue 3 is Marco Cadito and Matt Wilson. Issue 4 is Rachel Schott. So, in the first issue, Realize Means War, and this is basically a lawsuit between the Thing and Johnny Storm, which is just, it's just the whole thing with this one. It just pays tribute to all the times that Ben Grimm and Johnny Storm berated each other, which resulted in a lawsuit. Yeah, and then we have Lives of Gas. Look up here for Alan Davis. He, of course, he does a fantastic job here. Let's see. Has he ever... Because I know he did some X-Men. He's a long-time X-Men artist, but I don't think he ever did Fantastic Four. Oh, he did do Fantastic Four. Okay, he was the opening artist for... Okay, so I remember now. He was the artist for the Claremont run of Fantastic Four. Yes. I kind of forgot he did that one. But when I think of Alan Davis, most of it I think of X-Men and Excalibur. Have been doing a short story. Good idea to do. And of course, you had Fantastic Four. Not in the current costumes, same modern day. You have in the old school Jack Kirby costumes. And heck, if you want to do a Jack Kirby-esque type series, have Alan Davis write it. I would do Argus. This Argus is really good. This is a lot of fun story here. Don't know the place in this one, just a little fun story. Apparently, it was all a dream by Johnny Storm. And then we have this other story here where Johnny Storm finds love with the Monster Island. Yeah, also find love, of course, this is the Andrew Wheeler story. It's okay at best. Now you can tell by issues 2 cover, this is definitely a Neil Adams inspired cover. Based on the arc, and of course Sue Storm looks gorgeous in this cover. Like, oh my gosh, she looks so beautiful. Yeah, And there's no denying the fact, any comic lots on camera can tell, Reed Richards is a lucky man. Because he married a beautiful woman like her, and of course they have 2 kids together. Issue 3, this is basically... Issue 2, excuse me. So this story here, I think this is the... Oh yeah, this one basically is all about dealing with Psycho Man. Yep, Psycho Man's back in the story here with a bunch of it's like them going crazy for an issue. And then for some weird reason, I do not know why in the world that the writer had a good idea to do this. By having a parody of Hellraiser here, by having the pyramid from, which, this pyramid itself looks, I'm not going to show the bottom of the page here, but good gosh almighty. But this pyramid here looks like the cube from Hellraiser. I couldn't show the next panel because we have a guy here wearing the semi-attire, and his belly's bleeding. I couldn't show that, but I can show the pyramid. Like, look at this, it looks like the cube from Hellraiser movies. That's what it looks like here. I am surprised that this artist did not get accused of having designed this thing be a ripoff of the cube from the Hellraiser movies. So these movies here, apparently, this is basically Hickman stuff, and by the end of it, after all this, we turned, and then apparently that the Fantastic Four watching these all movies, watched by the Frightful Four from the Zombie Universe. Yes. They have Future Uncertain, which just has this Reed wearing his outfit from the Dan Slott run Fantastic Four, which I thought this is interesting. It's mostly just a little relaxing thing, focus on Reed, all science stuff. And then we have a Mark Buckingham story, which apparently, according to this is basically referencing Fantastic Four 144. It's all about dealing with the whole thing with humans. I love this artwork here. It's really good. Mark Buckingham, in my opinion, is another artist who I think she's going to work at either of the big two because this artwork is amazing. And like I think it's Alan Davis. This is Jack Kirby style artwork. It's a quick thing, and then moving to issue 3, which was the last story I read. Last issue I read before I fell behind in comics for the series. Yeah, Fight or Flight. This is obviously a Thing story, which I think the short story here is a prologue to the recent Thing miniseries, which was his second one he's had recently. Well, actually, in the last 20 years, he's had 3. Because first he had ongoing series back in the 80s. Then you had a mini-series in 2000s. Then you had the Volume 3, which was kind of weird with his placement because it was coming out during the Dan Slott run. And actually, it was doing a Ryan North run, excuse me. And Marvel did not make a claim of where the heck it took place because you have just the Thing cheating on his wife. And it turns out this is actually before the Ryan North run. Actually, before the Hickman, the Dan Slott run. Yeah, and this story here, just a flashback of like Fantastic Four over the years with the Thing. It's like this whole issue is focused on the Thing. And then we have a Thing story with, we have Thing versus Sandman, which was a reference to an old World War II issue. And Tom Punk writes it. Of course he would, it's Fantasy writing it. Also, Sandman gets a girlfriend here. Universe Appeal by Zardesky with the Aldrids, and this is one is obviously set during the current run because you have Johnny Snow with the mustache. Yeah, but it's done in the style of what the Aldrids were doing for Silver Surfer. And finally came issue 4, an issue I did not read when it came out, but I did read in this trade. This first story here is just, I like the artwork here, though every time you see in different artwork they keep changing Sue's length of her hair. This is basically like Sue visiting Mole Man apparently is dying and referencing their fights fed over the years. And it's called Ain't No Grave. And apparently it's like, just so you know, does Reno you here? No. And like the last thing he sees before she leaves is basically him looking at her rear end. Now, why in the world would this beautiful woman basically come down here? I have no idea. And then we have a story set when Christmas Party Fantastic Four. It's a Greg Weisman story where it's like one night when Johnny was still dating Crystal. Yeah, and then of course then the whole thing is a Mastermind and the X-Men show up to manipulate them. Yeah, and then apparently Mastermind was working with the Circus of Crime, a group of characters who never interacted with Fantastic Four, if I remember correctly, because they've only interacted with Spider-Man, Daredevil, and the Hulk, but never Fantastic Four. Oh, I think they've also interacted with the Avengers, but that was it. Then we have the third story here, which is a wrestling story, which is simply Reed battling Fantastic Four in a wrestling match done by Namor. It's a weird story. You have Johnny versus Battlestar. Yeah, is this Dan Warner Johnson story, the wrestling stuff? I think it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah, Danny Warren Johnson. Of course, basically, he would do this because he loves writing wrestling stuff. Yeah, but this book is a lot of fun. I give this book roughly a 10 out of 10. Next up is a book that, from what I could tell about this book was a book that no one was asking for. I think a lot of people were saying, excuse me, we already have a book called this, why a group called this people, why are we having a new group in this one? This is New Champions, Change is Coming. Yes, this collects the short-lived comic book by Stevie Fox. The comic itself is fine. I have no issue with the comic. The problem is, why do we have New Champions, even though we already have a group called Champions, already active? They guest starred in 2 issues of this book. And, by the way, that was the most recent appearance of the Mark Waid, the group created by Mark Waid and Brothers Rainbow. That was the most recent appearance by them. And I'm like, why? And these characters made a debut in the final few issues of Spider-Woman. And she suggests to call themselves New Champions. And I'm like, why? We already have a group called Champions. Already active. They have been active now for over a decade. And they had not had a series since the last one came out because it came out as tying into the stupid Outlaw stuff. Yeah. And these 8 members, by the way, yeah, of course, you see Fox doing the writing here with pretty much basically the first 5 issues and issue 8 done by Ivan Regal, of course, IG does issue 1. Yeah, Raul Coleman does issues 6 and 7. So, by the way, our new champions. Alright, so in the opening issue, yeah, it is like, what? Yeah, so the group first formed in a timeless one-shot, and now they appear here. So, your members are Moon Squire, Hellreen, Cadet Marvel, who is a guy, yes, a guy, and Liberty. Moon Squire is to put a kid Moon Knight. And Cadet Marvel is a boy version of Miss Marvel. Hellreen is basically, well, Hellreen is, I'm looking at her, she's basically a Thor ripoff. Yep. And Liberty herself is a very loose Captain America ripoff. Yes. No joke. And this is your line for issue 1. Yes, issue 1 of the series. We also have a woman named Phantasma, who is sort of a take on the... She's like a female black helmeted Ghost Rider. Yes. And she first appears in the book with issue... Apparently she made a debut in the Rob Reyes special. Yes. And the other members are, get this, Amrith Howlett, which you look at her, she's literally a Scarlet Witch ripoff. Yes. No idea why. And apparently, get this, her, yeah, this one here was a character debuted in Scarlet Witch who joined this group for reasons. Yes, reasons. She joined this group while she was doing her run in basically Scarlet Witch, and her reappearance was actually in the first issue of the current Source Supreme book, which is Scarlet Witch book. And then you have Golden Tiger, which is simply a Black Panther ripoff. Yes, seriously. So you could think of. Oh, by the way, they do in fact bring in, of all people, Spider-Man appears in the book once, in the opening issue by the Brothers Grimm. So you can think of New Champions as the ripoff team, because that is literally what they are, a group of ripoffs. So in the opening issue, the New Champions, despite the fact we have an active team, fights the Brothers Grimm issue 1. Like, the story itself was fine. So you're probably thinking, how in the world can you take this group seriously, even though basically that we already have a champions group? Oh, and by the way, the answer to the obvious question, who is the leader of this team? Is it Moonsquire? Nope, it's Liberty. Yep, the female Captain America ripoff is in fact the leader of the team. No, I'm not kidding about that. So Spider-Man pops up issue 1, and then we have these other kids. Actually, it's this is kind of weird. We have a bunch of teen variants of characters, of clearly established characters. So we summoned basically these various characters. We included Kid Juggernaut. Yes, Kid Juggernaut, who is a character made his debut in a digital comic that Steve Fox include here. A woman named Nightshade, and get this, her cousin is the original Nightshade, who later became Nighthawk. Yes, a woman who dated a Native American character who died. You also have Hooklet. Yes, a teenage girl who thinks he's She-Hulk. Yep, no joke. And does she join the team? No, she does not. Though this is not her original appearance. Yeah. She only appears as new champion just first 2 issues, and she's a character who basically appeared in Timeless. Most but she was a character appeared in the pages of Spider-Boy. At least Spider-Boy was a character anybody knew. And then we have Hydra. We also have other characters like Ice Master. Yes, there's a character named Ice Master who was a character who debuted in the pages of Thunderbolts. Oh yeah, and they referenced the whole thing in the book about, they basically first formed in the final issues of Champions, when they were basically new X-Men Champions in, what was it? Oh yeah, when they first formed pages of Spider-Woman. By issue 2, Hellrain leaves the team, and then Phantasma, Amory Howlett, and Golden Tiger join the team with Monet. We also have Deadpool Boy. Yes, Deadpool Boy. So then we have various other characters summoned here, and by the next year, they're all free to join the team. A few people join, and they have this big battle, and then people just turn down because now, in the case of Kid Juggernaut, basically he goes off to the Avengers Academy digital book. Nightshade does nothing. Kid Deadpool goes to his own universe, and Spider-Boy and the She-Hulk teenage ripoff, they go back to his book before it got canceled. In the case of, this lady here, she actually joined the team. So then we have Magic Tricks. Yes, we have a woman named Mantrix, and she is a character who they take on for a lot of the book. You better think, you look at this character. She is a Magneto ripoff, isn't she? Yes, she is a Magneto ripoff. And then by issue 3, they meet the real champions. Yes, the actual team champions, who are not happy with the fact that there is a group of characters that call themselves New Champions. And yeah, and now, by the way, the group, the Champions group that people love, they are not disbanding. They did not disband. When they appeared in this very issue, this was their second to most recent appearance. The most recent appearance was actually in Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe. And you're like, really? Yeah, because after the Champions book ended with issue 10 the previous time, they appeared in Devil's Reign for a bit. Appeared in one issue they're basically doing cameos. Of course, they've Fallen Friend, obviously. And this is the first print book they appeared in since the Fallen Friend one-shot was released. Which, by the way, that book was released in July 2023. And this book here, issue 3 of the book, was released about 2 years later. Now, and at the time this came out, this was the most recent appearance of the popular champions. And then they did nothing. Oh yeah, we also did with Psycho Man, who was Fantastic Four villain. And apparently champions have no problem with these characters using someone named to them. Yep. So of course you have one of the characters go to the hardware store. Of course she buys up with gold. And her coat says West Coast. Yeah. Oh yeah, and then we have, apparently this guy is part of the Serpent Society. Of course he is. So all the rest of the book is basically this. So the group meeting, of course, we have one of the characters working with a guy who looks like the Chadwick Boseman. Black Panther looks like him anyways. We get also have Golden Tiger, who was, like I mentioned, the costume itself looks exactly like the early sketches we had for Black Panther, unreleased by Jack Kirby. Yeah. So they based her outfit off one of those outfits. By outfit, why not? Yeah, and then we have where this original character that Steve Lenz created, of course, the one who's basically an actual character, who's not. Yeah, she's basically some of Scarlet Witch. Steve Lenz created her, and it's like he created her just to appear in this book. That's literally the reason for it, because he's a magic user. And they fight off against these various unnamed foes, don't do much anything. Oh, and then by issue 6, they meet up with the current champions. The Avengers. Yep, we named the Avengers because why the heck not? And at least here, the champions are not being disrespected by the main team like they were in that crossover with Champions that Mark Waid worked on. Yeah, which of course, Camilla formed Champions as a protest of how teenage superheroes being disrespected. So basically, she formed the group. And then Moon Knight Squared is saved by the real Moon Knight. Yeah, and then of course, basically, we just have stuff that was mentioned, majors of Doctor Strange of Asgard. We mentioned that here because why not? They fight against this other character, and then for the last issue, which I didn't know that was the last issue. I thought the series was going to issue 10. Nope. 7 was last issue I read when it came out, and then 8 came out like, oh, series over. Yeah, and they fight against this thing here, and for now, it's like they're teasing more, but nope. Nope. Because, of course, the book got canceled. I'm guessing I canceled because of low sales. Yes. This last issue was the last time we saw New Champions, and they've not been seen since then. To answer the question, was this book terrible? No. Was the book necessary? No. Now, the character who was a daughter of Chaos, she had a problem. She's a great character, and look how Steel developed her in the page of Scarlet Witch. But all these other characters in this book, they're like pretty much the whole team. You can think of New Champions as team ripoff, because that's what they are. They are bootleg characters. Now, why in the world that they did this, I have no idea. It is by far one of the most baffling decisions Marvel made by greeding this book. Yeah. It's not terribly written. T. Fox is not a terrible writer. Some books basically are hit and miss. He's more of a hit and miss. He's not overall terrible, as Critical Thinking put him. But this book, in my opinion, was not necessary to exist. I mean, who was asking for a New Champions book? I mean, people want New Champions book, yes, but how about the characters people actually like? Not these rip-off characters who debuted in a few issues of Spider-Woman, and then they give this book. All because of an offhand suggestion by Spider-Woman. Because they work for a corporation on the West Coast. Yeah. In my honest opinion, they should have just gave the New Champions book to the champions people actually love. But no, Marvel decided to be stupid with that. But at least Fanfare was a good idea. This New Champions book was not necessary. And, not surprising, basically Marvel shoved the whole book into this trade paperback. Now, the answer to the obvious question about New Champions, even though it lasted 8 issues, was the series ongoing or was it a limited series? It was ongoing. Yep, an ongoing series that was canceled after 8 issues. And I am putting the blame on the cancellation of this book, not on a change of politics. This book was canceled due to low sales. Yeah, low sales. And also because this is a book no one wanted. No one was asking for this book at all. It just felt like, unless you read Spider-Woman, you probably saw this at the comic shops. Were like, what is this? Who asked for this New Champions book? Wait, where's Camilla? Where's Miles? Where's Braun? Who are these people? I think it's more lack of familiarity and the fact these group of characters are just way too new to get their own spin-off book. Yeah. In my honest opinion, they should have continued the Spider-Man book instead of doing this. Because that book, I think anybody who read that book, the last book that came out, it felt unfinished. But the book ended because we had this really interesting storyline involving Gary Drew, and her son being turned into a guy, a full-grown man. That's why I think he was into as a baby. And given how he described how supposedly he was treated, and Jessica's like, that is so untrue. And the fact it was all caused by a Hulk villain? Yeah. But I mainly got the book just to talk about this book. Yeah. So that's pretty much a particular video. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, notifications. Next up, welcome to News Comic Con. Bye.